I've become increasingly convinced that most people have no idea what they're actually doing. And sometimes you'll get advice from people, and for almost all of it, it's just wrong. And the only thing that you have to do is just repeat. I am more convinced than ever that repetition is the only tool that we actually have. And the reason why I'm actually suggesting this is that most people will offer advice based on no understanding of the context at all. And I was thinking about that this morning. So I get comments and stuff like that on my reciprocity on all the different channels. One of the ones that I get advice, quote unquote advice and comments, is on my YouTube stuff. There's lots of different videos that are up there. And almost always in the early fall, I get a lot of angry comments that are very directed at me in a very not so nice manner. Um, and, I wonder what's actually going on there, right? Every early fall, there's all these sort of directed comments that I'm just like, I don't know how to interpret any of these things. And so I don't. But I wanted to sort of think about, by the way, it still hurts. It doesn't mean that I don't internalize it. I just try not to pay attention too much. But, what does this actually mean? And by the way, why is that? Is because I know the other people on the other side are actually deeply unhappy. Anybody in their right mind is ever going to deliver kind of nasty beliefs or thoughts to somebody else means that they are deeply disturbed inside. It's the same thing that even close family members, for example, that don't really get what I'm doing, I just know that they're dealing with things that are inside, and it's hard, right? I still want to cry when I see that, but or hear that, but I just know that they're kind of sad people inside, right? Like happy people often offer. So this is the thing where I was going to. So you're going to get, right, the sort of visceral, kind of not so nice stuff. I wouldn't go so far as like to say hateful, but I would say like not so nice. And those people are just deeply unhappy inside, right? They just don't understand. But you're going to get people that actually are truly interested in your interest, and they're going to offer, advice. But I want you to understand, like deep down inside, that those folks often don't really have any context behind anything, where they will offer advice that is well-intentioned, very nice, trying to actually truly help, but they have no context because they're not in the game, right? And they haven't done it and they don't really understand. And the only way that you can get context of seeing all of the nuances that actually work is through tremendous amounts of repetition. Or if you meet somebody, so even if you meet somebody that has tremendous amounts of repetition and they've done it many, many, many times before, your context, whatever you're working in, because you're uniquely you and your environment is uniquely you and your environment, it often doesn't apply, right? So those lessons just don't really work out. The only thing that I typically say now is just get out and try it and repeat, right? I think if you just go out there and you try, you will start to see patterns that you never thought of, but it's going to take an enormous amount of time to start seeing those patterns. You might think I have to try something 100 times. No, you can't see it until you've actually done it for years and you're on more than the thousands of times of doing it. It's like watching so I swim a lot, my kids swim a lot, and watching them grow up and understand swimming, it's interesting because for a long time I can try to tell them how to do something. And it helps if you know what you're doing, but they're not going to listen to me because I'm their dad. But um, for a big chunk of it, it is about learning the feel of the water and knowing when and how to push yourself, um, which is a skill that is very difficult to, you can't tell people how to do that, right? It's like, I listen to Gary Vee all of the time. And one of the sayings he has is, you can't, y- you, you, you you can't explain push-ups, right? Like you can't talk about push-ups. You actually have to do them. You have to get out there and actually try it. And then you will start to learn these nuances that are often not easy to see at the beginning and not easy to see for a long time, right? All those things, it's just repetition that will allow you to see those things. So I think ultimately that's almost always the best advice. It's just to repeat. Like think about if any of you have learned how to play the piano or an instrument, the best way is often just a teacher that will tell you to repeat and get out there and do it and maybe give you a little bit of hints every time. But most of it, it's just hours and hours and hours of repetition of going at moments where it's very difficult to sort of figure out and breaking things down in a very systematic way. So these different lessons that you're going to get from different people, inevitably, I guarantee almost always, even if you look very fondly on those people, they have no context to what you're doing in your own life. They really don't go through it. That's why often, my kids, for example, don't really listen to me because they don't have the context of their life as much. They're living their own life. And they will have different experiences than I had. My experiences are based on being in Northern Ontario and going to a high school that was very different than the high school where we are now in the U.S. in the southern states. It's very, very different experiences that we have. And so the only thing I could do is just kind of encourage them to get back up, realize it's frustrating, acknowledge all of the challenges, but I really don't have that much of a say other than just say, get back up, do it again, keep trying, get out there. I'm proud of you. Like the same things repeatedly before you actually start to figure out how to actually get this done. And I encourage you to do the same thing is, advice giving and those kind of things, they kind of work, but they are likely to fall on deaf ears unless there's context behind it and people really kind of understand what is truly going on behind the scenes. And almost always, it's just going to be, just do more. Just get out, do more. Every once in a while, deconstruct something, some action, break it down. But for the most part, it's just, let's get out there and do some more. Keep trying. All right. Take care and have a wonderful day.